Hi everyone, my name is Dr. K, and in this presentation I will walk you through the basics of Chapter 1, which are background, problem, and purpose statement. Here is an overview of what we will be covering in this presentation. We will start with an explanation of the funnel approach and why it is so important to use it when writing Chapter 1. Then we will examine the major elements, the background, problem statement, and purpose statement. I will share tips on writing these sections and avoiding common mistakes. Finally, we will discuss how to connect all elements into a strong narrative. So why does Chapter 1 matter so much? Think of Chapter 1 as the roadmap for your entire capstone. It defines the scope and focus of your study. It engages the reader and sets the stage for the remaining chapters. Now let's talk about the funnel approach. This method involves starting with a broad context and slowly narrowing down to the specifics of your study. Think of it as guiding the reader through a logical progression from understanding the broader significance of your topic to clearly identifying the problem and purpose of your research. Over the next few slides, we will examine each of these elements. To begin with, I will provide an overview of the first section of Chapter 1 called Background. The background section is where you provide the context for your study. You start broad by introducing the larger issue or topic and then gradually narrow your focus to the specific area you will be investigating. A strong background section hooks your audience with key trends, statistics, or gaps in the literature and explains why your topic matters. At the same time, you need to be careful to avoid diving into your study's specific details in this section by stating the purpose of your study or your research question. You also want to be careful not to turn this section into a full literature review. Here is an example of a well-organized background section. Notice how it starts with a broad issue, in this case, national statistics on faculty turnover and burnout. Then it moves into the importance of faculty satisfaction and retention for institutional success. Finally, it introduces mentorship as a possible strategy for supporting early career faculty. The gap statement at the bottom points out that while mentorship is gaining attention, there is limited research on how formal programs at research universities impact job satisfaction and intent to stay. This background flows logically and builds a strong case for the problem that follows. Here are some tips for writing a strong background section. First, focus on maintaining a logical flow by moving from general to specific. Avoid stating your research questions or purpose directly in this section, as those belong later in Chapter 1. Use credible, recent sources to support your claims. And finally, keep your background concise but impactful, and ensure that it builds a compelling case for the problem you will address. Now let's look into the problem statement. The problem statement is the heart of Chapter 1. It clearly identifies the issue your study addresses and answers key questions like what is the problem that this investigation was guided by? Who is affected by this problem and how? Why does it matter to resolve this problem? A strong problem statement is specific and evidence-based, providing enough context for the reader to understand its significance without overlapping with the purpose statement. To write an effective problem statement, consider this formula. What is the issue and what is the supporting evidence or the surrounding context of this issue, and what is the impact of this issue? For example, in the faculty mentorship study, we might use the presented example. In this sentence, we clearly name the issue, low satisfaction, and high turnover. We provide a context that there is a growing interest in mentorship. And we point out the impact. which is uncertainty about whether these programs are effective. Using this model will help you structure your own problem statement and make sure each element is clearly addressed. Let's take a moment to discuss common mistakes in Chapter 1. One common mistake is being too broad or generic. This involves discussing general trends without connecting them to the problem or purpose of your study, or including too much literature that is better suited in your Chapter 2. The second common mistake is claiming something to be a problem without providing evidence for it. For example, I can try to argue that not having daily coffee and donuts for new faculty is a problem. But in order to present this as a research problem guiding my study, I need to be able to provide evidence that shows how offering daily coffee and donuts to early career faculty increases their productivity, motivation, job satisfaction, or something else. Now let's move on to the purpose statement, where we outline the objectives of our study. The purpose statement is your response to the problem statement. It outlines the goals of your study and sets the stage for introducing your research questions. A good purpose statement serves as a bridge between the problem statement and your research questions. The purpose statement must answer the following two questions. What will your study investigate, and how does that relate to the problem you presented? Even though a purpose statement is typically a very short section of Chapter 1, writing it can be tricky as we should not state our research questions. The purpose statement should serve as a broader introduction to our research questions and should introduce the overall purpose of our investigation. One of the most critical aspects of Chapter 1 is ensuring that all elements, background, problem statement, and purpose statement, flow logically. The background section should lead directly into the problem statement, and the problem statement should logically connect to the purpose. To achieve this goal, avoid repetition or disconnects between sections. Use transitions to guide the reader and ensure that the narrative follows the funnel approach. Now let's take a look at some examples of effective and ineffective Chapter 1 elements. On this slide, we can see a lack of connection and a weak funnel approach between the background, problem, and purpose. The background mentions mentorship programs and faculty burnout, but it does not explain how these two are related. Then the problem points to faculty attrition, but the purpose suddenly shifts focus to onboarding processes which are not mentioned earlier. This kind of disconnect can confuse the reader and weaken the rationale for your study. The lesson here is to make sure that each section flows logically into the next. This example shows a strong connection between the background, problem, and purpose statement. The background identifies a relevant issue, faculty burnout and job satisfaction, and connects it to the rising use of mentorship programs. The problem statement that builds onto that by pointing out that these programs may not be as effective as assumed, citing evidence of continued attrition. Finally, the purpose of the study directly supports that problem by investigating how mentorship programs influence job satisfaction and retention. This clear progression is what we are aiming for in Chapter 1. We will wrap up by reviewing the Chapter 1 checklist. First, ask yourself, does your background establish a strong context? This means starting broadly and narrowing down to highlight the relevance and importance of your study. Second, is your problem statement specific and evidence-based? A strong problem statement clearly identifies the issue, provides supporting context or data, and explains why it matters. Next, does your purpose statement align directly with the problem? The purpose should clearly respond to the problem you have identified, outlining what your study aims to achieve. Finally, is the full narrative logical and cohesive? Each section of Chapter 1, the background, problem statement, and purpose statement, should flow naturally into the next. Thank you for watching this presentation on Chapter 1 Basics. I hope the information will be helpful as you start building your study.